You want to become a high-value woman? Good? Then listen close because this isn't about surface-level glamour or playing games to get attention. This is about becoming untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're complete. It starts the moment you decide you're done begging for respect, done shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone, done being available for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. You want real value? Build it. In your standards, in your silence, in the way you walk into a room and don't need to announce your worth, because it shows in your energy, the way you speak with purpose, love with boundaries, and walk away when you're not seen or respected. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop explaining and start protecting your peace. That's value. You want them to respect you? Then stop giving discounts. Stop showing up for people who only remember you when they need something. High value isn't about having something to prove, it's about having something to protect. Your time, your energy, your vision. You don't let people play with those things anymore. Because the truth is, you teach people how to treat you, and the moment you raise your price, the wrong ones will walk. Let them. That's exactly how the right ones find their way to you when you stop trying to convince anyone that you're enough. Let me be real with you. The minute you start chasing validation, you start leaking power. Every time you need someone to tell you you're enough, to tell you you're beautiful, to confirm you're wanted, you're putting your self-worth on life support. And the oxygen mask is in someone else's hands. That's not power. That's dependence. And if you want to become a high-value woman, you have to cut that cord. Right here, right now. You were not made to shrink just so someone else feels big. You were not made to dim just so someone else can shine. But that's what happens when you live on external validation. You lose yourself trying to be what they want, trying to act right, look right, sound right, play the part, all in the hope that they'll pick you, choose you, approve of you. But let's be honest, if they can make or break your worth with a compliment or a cold shoulder, then your value was never anchored in you to begin with. It's time to flip that. Your value doesn't start when someone notices you. It starts when you notice yourself. It begins when you look in the mirror and see more than flaws, more than not enough, more than rejection. It begins when you stop asking the world to clap for you and start clapping for your damn self. When you stop chasing reassurance and start owning who you are, without apology, without explanation. See, a high-value woman doesn't wait to be seen. She sees herself first. She validates herself before the world even gets a chance to speak. She looks at herself and says, I am already enough, already worthy, already whole. And when that belief lives inside of you, really lives, people feel it. They sense it in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. Because now you're not operating from emptiness, you're operating from overflow. You want to stop being manipulated, stop looking for approval in all the wrong places. You want to stop falling for half love and crumbs of attention, then stop thinking that their presence defines your worth. When you start validating yourself, you stop chasing closure, explanations, apologies. You don't need someone to finish the sentence. You are the sentence. Complete. Period. Let me tell you something else. People can smell insecurity. They see it when you overgive just to be liked. They see it when you laugh too loud to fit in, when you agree to things just to stay accepted, when you stay silent to keep the peace. That's not love. That's fear disguised as connection. And a woman operating from fear will always attract people who feed off her doubt. But when you switch to self-worth, when you stop asking, am I enough for them, and start declaring, are they enough for men, and start declaring, are they enough for me, everything changes. You'll lose people. That's true. But you'll also lose anxiety. You'll lose confusion. You'll lose that aching need to be seen. Because suddenly you're not performing. You're just being authentically, powerfully, fully. You stop showing up trying to be lovable and start showing up knowing you already are. And listen, self-validation doesn't mean you don't appreciate compliments. It just means you don't need them. It doesn't mean you ignore feedback. It just means you filter it through your own truth. You don't bend to every opinion, every mood swing, every social trend. You don't ask, do they like me? You ask, do I even like them? That's the shift. That's the difference. That's what makes a woman high value. Not looks, not money, not a relationship status, but the unshakable knowledge that her worth is not negotiable, that even when she walks away from everything and everyone, she's still rich, because she has her. So stop begging for breadcrumbs when you were built to own the whole table. Stop waiting on permission to be powerful. You were never meant to be quiet, small, or forgettable. You were never meant to be quiet, small, or forgettable. You were meant to stand tall, not because someone told you to, but because you finally believed you could. And when you start living like that with real, rooted self-worth, you don't have to chase anything. Respect finds you. Energy shifts around you. In the right ones, they recognize you. Not because you screamed for it, but because silence backed by value speaks louder than noise ever could. Let me tell you something straight, something nobody talks about enough. Your boundaries are your value in motion. That's where your worth stops being a concept and starts being a reality. It's not enough to say you want respect. You've got to show people how to respect you. And that starts with the one thing most women are terrified to do: enforce boundaries without guilt, without flinching, without backtracking. Anyone can say, "I don't tolerate disrespect," but the moment someone crosses the line, most people fold. They stay silent. They make excuses. They give second, third, and 10th chances, hoping the other person will eventually understand. Listen, if you have to remind someone 10 times how to treat you, they were never interested in honoring you to begin with. Stop educating people who refuse to learn. Start protecting your peace like it's your paycheck. Your boundary is not a wall to keep love out. It's a filter to keep toxicity from creeping in. It's the difference between self-respect and self-betrayal. When you allow someone to violate your space, your time, your energy, and you do nothing, you're not being kind, you're being complicit in your own devaluation. That's not softness. That's self-sacrifice. And it's time you get tired of bleeding quietly just to keep others comfortable. You don't owe anyone access to you just because they want it. Access is earned, and not just by sweet words, fake effort, or showing up once in a while. Access is earned through consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. But if you keep giving the green light to people who run every red flag, then you're not setting boundaries, you're performing them. It's not about being rude. It's about being clear. Clear is kind. No, I'm not available tonight. No, I don't allow that kind of talk. No, I won't keep explaining what should be obvious. You don't have to yell. You don't have to justify. You don't have to convince. You just state the boundary and stand on it. Because once people realize you don't enforce what you say, they treat your words like decoration, not direction. And yes, people will test you, they'll push, they'll guilt trip, they'll act confused or offended. Let them. That discomfort you feel when you set a boundary, that's the feeling of growth. That's your inner voice finally standing up after being shut down for too long. You don't shrink yourself anymore to avoid rejection. You allow rejection to do its job. It filters out what doesn't belong. You want to be respected in a relationship. Start by respecting yourself when you're not in one. Stop bending over backward for bare minimum effort. Stop texting back when your intuition is screaming don't. Stop showing up for people who only remember you when it's convenient. When you honor your boundaries, you send a message: I know who I am. I know what I deserve. And I won't settle for anything less. The truth is, boundaries are love, real love, to yourself, to your peace, to your future. When you enforce boundaries, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop surviving in chaos and start building in clarity. And suddenly your world gets quieter, calmer, cleaner. Not because fewer people exist, but because fewer people qualify. People talk about becoming high value like it's something you wear or say, but it's not what you post. It's what you protect. It's how quickly you walk away when someone shows you they're not aligned. It's how you don't entertain disrespect disguised as a joke. It's how you guard your time like treasure, because it is. And when you finally understand that, you don't just set boundaries, you become one. So the next time you feel that discomfort rising in your chest when someone crosses the line, don't run from it. Lean into it, speak up, hold firm, be unshakable. Because the moment you start enforcing your boundaries like they matter, you teach the world exactly how much you matter. And that's not ego, that's self-respect, that's real power, that's the difference between being available and being valuable. You want to know what separates a high-value woman from the rest? It's this: she doesn't chase, she chooses. That one shift changes everything. She's not running after love, not begging to be noticed, not auditioning for attention. Because the moment you start chasing, you're giving the other person the steering wheel to your worth. You're saying, you decide if I'm enough, you decide if I'm wanted. And that's a game you will always lose. Chasing flips your power upside down. Suddenly, you're over-explaining, you're proving, you're pleasing, you're rearranging your schedule, your values, your whole identity just to get someone to stay. And for what? So they don't leave. So you feel chosen for 5 minutes before the anxiety kicks in again. Let's get something straight. If you have to chase it, It was never stable to begin with. If you have to beg for clarity, you're already standing on confusion. A woman of value doesn't need to be picked because she's already picking herself. She doesn't wait by the phone. She doesn't craft the perfect response, hoping it earns her a reply. She doesn't lower her standards just to avoid being alone. She looks at who's showing up, how they're showing up, and whether it aligns with what she stands for. And if it doesn't, she moves on. Not with drama, not with bitterness, but with certainty. Because when you stop chasing, you start seeing things clearly. When you're in chase mode, you ignore red flags, you justify mixed signals, you create potential where there is none. You become addicted to hope instead of anchored in reality. And that's where you lose yourself. You start adjusting to chaos, thinking it's passion. You start normalizing neglect, thinking it's space. You make excuses for absence, thinking it's independence. But the truth is, you're chasing what isn't choosing you. And that right there is the slowest form of self-abandonment. Stop glorifying struggle love. Stop falling for inconsistency just because it comes wrapped in a compliment once in a while. You deserve stability. You deserve clarity. You deserve effort that doesn't need to be begged for. But none of that comes when you're chasing. It comes when you pause, step back and observe. It comes when you realize that your power is in your selection, not your desperation. You are not here to prove you're lovable. You are here to live in a way that honors your value, and let the people who align with that rise to meet you. That means stop showing up for people who ghost you and expect a welcome party when they return. Stop trying to force a connection that only flows one way. Stop settling for attention when you deserve presence. Because a woman who chooses doesn't just ask, do they want me? She asks, do I want this? Do I even want them? Choosing is an act of strength. It's quiet power. It's the ability to say, I know I could have them, but I don't want to compromise myself to keep them. It's the wisdom to know when someone's energy isn't healthy, even if their words sound sweet. It's the discipline to walk away, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. When you start choosing instead of chasing, everything shifts. You stop attracting emotionally unavailable people because you no longer have time for guessing games. You stop entertaining temporary people because your vision is long-term. You stop being breadcrumbed because you're too full on self-worth to nibble on anything less than consistency. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what makes you undeniable. Not your beauty, not your charm, but your standards. Your ability to stand tall, even when your heart wants to lean in. Your ability to pause instead of pursue, because chasing comes from lack. Choosing comes from knowing you're whole, with or without them. You want real connection. Choose it. Don't chase it. You want love that sees you. Wait for the one who walks toward you without confusion. You want someone to value your presence. Then stop throwing it at people who treat it like a convenience. You're not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to walk like you already know it. Because when you do, the ones who truly matter won't need convincing. They'll recognize you. And you'll recognize you. If you want to become a high-value woman, you need to master one thing most people never talk about: emotional discipline. Not reacting to everything. Not snapping back at every insult. Not crumbling the second something doesn't go your way. You want to know who really wins. The one who keeps her composure when everyone else is losing theirs. That's not weakness. That's power wrapped in self-control. Look, life's going to test you. People will try you. You'll hear things that sting, feel things that shake you, face moments that push every emotional button you've got. But the difference between staying low and rising above is simple. You choose how to respond. And if you don't choose, your emotions will choose for you. That's where you lose. Because emotional chaos might feel good in the moment, but it costs you your peace, your respect, and your power in the long run. You want to be taken seriously, then stop reacting like a firecracker every time something lights a fuse. You don't have to match people's energy. You don't have to argue every time you feel disrespected. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay silent, smile, and let your absence do the talking. Emotional discipline isn't about shutting down, it's about choosing what deserves your energy, and who is even worth a response. That text you're dying to send in the heat of the moment, don't. That long paragraph explaining your worth to someone who already overlooked it, delete it. That desire to clap back with the perfect insult, let it go. Every time you choose peace over proving a point, you train yourself to operate from a place of power, not pain, and that's how high-value women move. You can't be emotionally available for every trick. You can't afford to fall apart every time someone doesn't like you, doesn't understand you, or doesn't treat you the way you expected.
That doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't let your feelings control the steering wheel. You can feel anger and still choose gray. You can feel hurt and still move with clarity. That's the strength people notice, but can't figure out. That's what makes you unshakable. Here's the truth. Most people are reactive. They say whatever they feel. They lash out, then regret it. They let temporary emotions create permanent damage. But not you. You train yourself. You pause. You breathe. You ask, is this worth my peace? And 9 times out of 10, the answer will be no. Because when your emotions are high, your logic is low, and you're too smart to keep losing to things that won't matter in a week. There's a certain kind of woman who walks into a room and you can feel the calm in her. She doesn't speak unless it matters. She doesn't argue unless it's worth it. She doesn't chase conflict, but she's not afraid of it either. Her silence is not weakness, it's calculation. Her composure is not lack of emotion, it's strength under control. That's the energy people respect. That's the woman nobody wants to mess with. Not because she's loud, but because she's centered. You get to that place by practicing. You start small. You stop responding to every insult. You stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You let go of the need to be right all the time. You learn to sit with your emotions instead of reacting from them. You journal. You go for a walk, you pray, you cry, but you don't explode. You release, not react. That's the level most people never reach. But you're built for more. You don't need to be the loudest to be the most powerful. You don't need to throw shade to prove a point. You don't need to show everyone how mad you are. You need to show yourself that you're not controlled by anything outside of you. Because emotional discipline isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about knowing that even when you're not, you still get to decide how you show up. You still get to protect your peace. You still get to be in control. And when you learn to do that, you don't just survive chaos, you command it. You walk through storms calm, collected, and clear. And that's how you let the world know, this woman can't be shaken. She chooses her reaction. And that's why she always wins. You want to know what makes a woman truly high value? It's not the clothes, not the followers, not the attention. It's this. She has her own life. She is the main character, not a supporting role in someone else's story. She doesn't sit around waiting to be chosen, rescued, or entertained. She's building. She's focused. She's living like her future depends on her decisions. Today. Because it does. Too many women make the mistake of building their identity around a man, a relationship, or a fantasy of one. They lose themselves trying to be the one for someone else before they've even figured out who they are. And here's the truth. The moment your happiness becomes dependent on someone else's presence, you've handed over the keys to your life. And anyone who holds your keys can take your peace, your power, your direction, anytime they want. A high-value woman doesn't do that. She has purpose. She has goals that excite her, habits that strengthen her, a routine that grounds her. She has friendships, passions, dreams, and Her life doesn't pause when someone exits. It keeps moving. And that is the energy that makes people stop and notice. Not because she's loud, not because she's trying, but because she's already in motion. If you don't build your own life, you'll keep getting lost in someone else. You'll attach too fast. You'll tolerate too much. You'll make excuses for disrespect, because the relationship is all you have. But when you have your own foundation, emotionally, financially, spiritually, you don't tolerate chaos. You don't beg for time. You don't chase effort. You choose. You assess. You filter. When you're living your life fully, you don't have time for games. You don't sit by the phone waiting for a text. You're not available every time someone pops up with weak energy. You've got things to do. You're learning, growing, stretching. And if someone wants to be a part of that journey, great. But they need to add to it, not interrupt it. You're not building a life just to squeeze someone into it who doesn't fit. You're building something real. And if they don't match your pace, your vision, or your values, you keep moving. Having your own life also means you've mastered being alone. You don't fear silence. You don't need constant company to feel complete. Because you like yourself. You respect your time. You can take yourself out, cheer yourself on, invest in yourself. You don't sit in rooms just to feel wanted. You sit in rooms where you're valued. And if those rooms don't exist, you build them yourself. That's the kind of woman who doesn't get played, doesn't get manipulated, doesn't get stuck in situations where she's pouring all her energy into someone who gives the bare minimum. Because she's not desperate. She's decisive. She knows her energy is currency, and she spends it wisely. And here's something else. When you build your own life, it shows. In your posture, in your schedule, in your... You walk differently when you know you've got something going for yourself. You speak differently when you're not relying on someone else to give your life meaning. People feel it, that quiet confidence, that glow that doesn't come from being loved by someone else, but from loving your own life. So ask yourself, if they leave, what's left of you? If the calls stop, if the attention fades, if the relationship ends, do you still have you? Because that's what truly matters. That's what lasts. That's the foundation no one can take from you. The projects you've started, the mindset you've developed, the self-respect you've built, that's yours. That's what holds you up when everything else falls apart. Build your own life so powerfully that love becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. So that you walk into every connection knowing you bring value, not looking for it. So that if someone wants to join your journey, they better come correct, because you've already got momentum. You are not waiting for someone to choose you. You are choosing yourself every day. And in that decision, in that daily commitment to show up for your own life, you become untouchable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're rooted, anchored, alive in your own purpose. And that's a woman who doesn't chase, doesn't settle. She builds and lets the right ones meet her at her level. Here's the truth, plain and unfiltered. Becoming a high-value woman isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you to shrink. It's about cutting the noise, the approval-seeking, the chasing, the bending over backward energy, and replacing it with ownership, clarity, and standards. It's about finally saying, I don't need to be chosen. I choose myself first. You stop looking outside for validation because you already know your worth. You set boundaries. And you don't just talk about them, you live them. You don't chase anyone, because desperation was never your energy. You choose. You move with discipline, not drama. You learn to control your emotions, not suppress them, because real strength is not loud, it's stable, and you build a life you're proud of, with or without applause, with or without anyone standing beside you. And from that space, that wholeness, you attract people who respect your time, your silence, your standards, because they feel it, that you're not looking for a savior. You are the safe place. You're not trying to prove anything, you're just walking in who you've always been. The goal isn't to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be loved by yourself so fully that you don't flinch when someone doesn't understand your value. You walk away with peace, not pain. You grow through solitude, not settle in silence. You radiate presence, not need. That's what it means to be a high-value woman. It's not a label, it's a lifestyle, and it starts the second you decide, I'm done proving, I'm done chasing, I'm done lowering. From here on out, I ride.